Thank you. Thank you. I was wondering if you could just share or expand a little bit more about bringing presence to a social cause. I've been involved in the last few weeks in something, opposing something, but I'm aware from your teaching that when you oppose something, when you resist something, you're also bringing energy to that. And I was wondering if you could just share a little more.
Well, the question is how do you go about what you call opposing? Let's say you want to change something because you see that there is something harmful or destructive or very unconscious happening somewhere.
About to happen.
About to happen? Okay. So how do you go about initiating change or possibly preventing it from happening without actively opposing or fighting, pushing against? So maybe you can just briefly talk a little bit about what your strategies are. How do you go about it?
Well, it's a grassroots kind of thing that just sprang up very quickly, and I stepped in because there was a need for somebody to help push against the building of a big $300 million casino in our neighborhood. Oh. So suddenly, and it's a very short time frame, and I feel like sometimes all of this energy that's rising up is maybe misplaced because we're trying to, I want to bring consciousness to it, but it's just a little bit confusing about what our strategy should be, because it's, the lobbyists and the politicians are all just kind of bulldozing, almost literally, right through the town. So I'm trying to, how do you bring awareness to the strategy, I guess?
Well, one important factor is just to disseminate information. What are the consequences of this, and bring it to as many people as possible. And but the very foundation for everything is not to realize and remember. Well, the foundation for your action needs to be a state of consciousness that is not negative. So, because if you act from negativity, you get angry, and you need to accuse people.
There's a lot of that going on.
And in some cases it takes more extreme forms. You demonize, not you, but what can happen, demonize people. So if you are vigilant as to your state of consciousness while you take action or while you plan what kind of action is possible, so you probably have a group of people who work together, so you meet regularly. Before you start talking, you remind yourselves what's the most important thing here, and that's our state of consciousness. Because if we are in a negative state, then casino isn't that much worse than a negative state of consciousness. So who knows, perhaps people in there are even happy, or they're probably drinking. So first you start with that, then you address what are the causes of action now that we can now, what is our cause of action that we can do now, and then you give from everything emanating from presence. You're also more likely to be effective, not only because when you are present, good ideas are much more likely to come to you. The right thing to do, the realization what's the right thing to do, is much more likely to come when you're present than when you're negative. And often intuition an intuitive realization of, oh, this is what we can do, would not have come if you had been in a negative state. So that comes first. But not only that, also to be in that state of inner alignment also activates, it sounds a little mystical almost, it activates certain things that do not seem to be connected with you in any way that one could see. Sometimes it's called synchronistic events, and synchronistic events as defined by Carl Jung, he has a good definition for synchronicity, and he calls it an acausal, which means a non-causal connecting principle. Non-causal means when something happens that is just right, a helpful event that seems to resonate with what you are doing, but you cannot trace on the surface of things how this happened. So in that sense it's non-causal, as if you hadn't caused it. So in that state of presence, in other words, you tend to attract circumstances that are helpful, or people that can help you and are helpful. And many people have found that, as they live more and more in presence, that helpful things suddenly happen. So it has the two benefits then of being present is you become more creative in what you do, intuition works, right action happens much more easily, and you tend to attract helpful factors from outside, seemingly. So you can only be intelligent about it if you are present. So it's otherwise it's not really unintelligent action. And then it's also not likely that you will attack unnecessarily, because attacking individual people and so on just creates more energy coming back at you. It actually reinforces the opposing energy if you go into attack. So we all know passive resistance is of course a good example of non-attack. People like as practiced works up by Gandhi and so on. That's passive resistance. But what ideas will come? How much time do you have now before they build the casino?
It's until the end of July is when they'll decide. The state of New York will decide where it goes.
Yes, and so you have. I assume you've worked out the decision-making process, how it works, and whether it can be influenced. You've all worked that already out. Okay. So just apply more presence to it.
And I just recalled something that you said about in a committee meeting holding the frequency, because
Yes.
it's the other of this group that they see it as a negativity. They want to attack the people that made the initial decision. And
Yes.
so I guess what you said about holding the frequency and presence, not to really worry about them.
That's
or
right.
try to control their actions, but just hold the presence.
Yes, and show what would be the consequences, what would change, this would happen. Information, give people what they need to know. It's an interesting. It requires a lot of skill and skillful action and wisdom to be engaged in that. And I wish you well. Let me know what happens. Thank you.